But there were also those deeply suspicious of Wolfgang's true abilities. The English authorities appointed a jury to assess whether Leopold was being truly accurate with his claims that such extraordinary compositions came from the head of an 8-year-old boy.
I was charged with submitting tests to the Royal Society. I have to say I had doubts as to whether the father was being truly accurate with the boy's age, although he certainly had a most childlike appearance and disposition. My report to the Royal Society stated most emphatically that his execution was amazing. The scale clearly preponderated on the side of Mozart, and that he was as worthy as our own Handel of receiving the title prodigy.
During this 3.5-year grand tour the Mozarts made, Wolfgang learnt an enormous amount. He found how to charm and entertain princes and kings, Louis XV, George III, and also how to transfix a crowd. And one of the things I love about Mozart is that even in these formative years, his music was for everyone. Eventually, he returned to Salzburg a much more complicated child. And Leopold wrote about this with a mixture of trepidation and defiance, as well he might. Childhood has the power to entrance. I sometimes think that Leopold was a dreamer of almost impossible dreams, in that he hoped by sheer belief alone that he could render childhood eternal.
Difficult time. Things were not going as I'd planned. All of Europe marveled at my son. But in Salzburg, his great merits went unrecognized. He should, at the very least, been offered a post as court composer, but I would sooner trust a horse trader, soothsayer, a mountebank, and one of those seething, envious, backbiting nobles of the court.
Most beloved and esteemed Signor, I beg you to tell me what you think of my humble music. We live in a world where the arts should be encouraged, so that we may enlighten one another. But in the country where I live, music must struggle even to exist.
This grand piano that I'm playing on here is really quite a lot like the fortepiano upon which Mozart composed his piano concerto in B-flat when he was 20. The fortepiano was very much his instrument. There had been an enormous revolution in keyboards and keyboard design leading up to this point. There'd been the clavichord, a small domestic instrument where the string is struck but the sound is tiny. Then the harpsichord, the string is plucked but very little potential there for expressive colour. And then there was the fortepiano, which by the 1770s was undergoing a revolution of its own in terms of the way its action was designed. It meant that now you could play the same note repeatedly in a way that you hadn't been able to before. Also, the sound, the depth of expression and possibility was growing all the time with the instrument, and Mozart seized on this. But here, in this B-flat major concerto, there is actually a sense of being hemmed in, of constriction in this music, which must have been very much how Mozart felt being stuck in Salzburg.
If I'm truthful, my son's temperament contributed towards his frustrations in trying to obtain a permanent position. My son was brilliant, but he could not temper himself. In 1771, a new man came to power in the bishopric, Hieronymus Colloredo, who was less sympathetic to the aspirations of my family.
I've always imagined Archbishop Colloredo as rather a narrow, conservative man, jealously guarding his own fiefdom. But in fact, he was a great supporter of the Enlightenment, and he had portraits of two of its heroes, Rousseau and Voltaire, on his study walls, which from time to time he had to cover up in order to avoid offending some of the more conservative burghers of Salzburg. The picture the Mozart family paint of him is obstructive and bullish, unwilling to embrace their grand design. You have to have some sympathy with him, though. They'd returned to Salzburg, having in their eyes conquered the world. He was paying them a perfectly honest salary. Why should he bend his will to their every desire?
Oh, Father, I bet you a kreutzer that you can't hit our musical friends from Italy.
I'm perplexed at their newfound ascendancy in the diocese. Their playing is sodden with sentimentality.
Signor Baldoni has been silenced.
I'm serious. The theatres are closed, our concerts curtailed, the mass is shortened. Our prospects do not look good.
Your Grace, most worthy Prince of the Holy Roman Empire, my father begs you to allow us to travel for a few months in order that we can make some money. You refused to grant such leave. Our situation is pressing, and you object, my gracious Prince and Lord. My father has dedicated himself to my education, and I owe it to him to lighten his burden.
So the court musician wishes to dictate when he plays and when he doesn't. And do they really think that I believe that this is written by the son and not the father? So they wish to seek their fortunes elsewhere. And so they shall. Tell Mozart the younger that he may travel, but that I'll not have the treasury drained by the father's absence. Frau Mozart can nurse the boy.
Mozart's liberty was a blow to Leopold. At 21, he'd flown the nest. Frau Mozart was ordered to spy on his every move.
Did I tell him to take the straight road from Salzburg to Mannheim?
Yes, you did, Father.
Does he know to approach Munich from the east?